This is your module 4. In this module, we will explore the foreign influences on Old English. Please read the materials and the videos posted for this week. In this video, I will try to give you a quick summary. Old English period is defined to be the time from the 5th century until the Norman conquest in 1066. Old English developed in the span of these 500 years. During the time, Old English expanded its vocabulary by borrowing words mainly from Celtic, Latin, and then from the Scandinavian languages. Celtic languages were the native languages of the British Isles. The Latin language was brought mainly by missionaries, and the Scandinavian languages were brought to England by the Vikings who invaded England. It's interesting to see how the cultural and political changes due to migrations or invasions have always been a blessing in disguise to the English language. The language has always been further enriched by such changes. Now, let us look at the influence of Celtic, Latin, and Scandinavian languages to understand how the vocabulary of Old English continuously expanded. Now, let's talk about the Celtic languages first of all. The original native people of England spoke Celtic languages. Then Angles, Saxons, and Jutes invaded England in the 5th century and established the English language, which slowly spread in the island among the Celtic people. The early form of the language is called Old English, which assimilated with the native Celtic population over time. English took many vocabularies from the Celtic languages. The influence of the Celtic language is mainly in place and river names. River names are such as Thames, Avon, Dover, Esk, Wye, and Usk. Place names that come from Celtic languages are Cumberland, Winchester, Salisbury, Gloucester, Worcester, Kent, York, etc. They are still spoken the same way today. Besides, there are loanwords in many names, and they are place names, such as Coombe means deep valley, such as Duncombe, Hulscombe, Whichcombe, etc. Tor means high rock in place names in the Celtic language. They are used in English, for example, Torcross, Torhill, etc. Outside of place and river names, the influence of Celtic and Old English is negligible. Here are a few examples. Bin means basket, brat means cloak, Hume means deep valley, Tor means projecting rock, and Dun means dark colored. These words are borrowed from the Celtic languages. Now let's talk about the Scandinavian influence. We know that the Vikings invaded England during the Old English period. It was not just one incident. They invaded several times and eventually settled in England. The invasions by the Vikings started as early as 787, according to Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, and continued for several centuries. The initial influence was in the Danelaw, or the northern or eastern areas of England. Here are examples in the modern form. For example, in nouns, words such as band, bank, birth, booth, bull, calf, dirt, egg, fellow, freckle, guess, kid, leg, race, root, scab, score, scrap, seat, sister, skill, skin, skirt, sky, stick, trust, window. Some adjectives borrowed from the Scandinavian languages are such as awkward, flat, ill, loose, low, meek, muggy, odd, rotten, rugged, sly, tattered, tight, weak. Accordingly, verbs such as bait, call, cast, clip, cow, crave, crawl, die, droop, gasp, get, give, glitter, lift, rage, rake, scare, screech, take, thrive, thrust. This way, English language was enriched by the Scandinavian invasions. Now let's look at the Latin influence. This is the most influential language regarding enriching the English language. About 29% English words come from the Latin language. The influence of the Latin language can be viewed in three periods. First, the period of continental borrowing. Second, the period of Celtic transmission. Third, the period of the Christianizing of Britain. The period of continental borrowing spans from the 1st to 5th centuries. Around 50 words came into the language through Germanic contact with Rome before the invasion and settlement of Britain. Here are words that came from the Latin language into Old English. Words that relate to war in Old English, such as camp, pill, strait, mill, came from Latin words such as campus, pilum, strata, and milia. Now, words related to trade in Old English, such as sape, pond, win, minute, come from Latin words capo, pondo, vinum, and moneta. Now, here are some words related to domestic life that were borrowed from Latin language into Old English. Old English words such as cup, disc, pile, kaisen, linen, gim come from Latin words cuppa, discus, pulvinus, coquina, linum, and gemma, which in modern English are cup, dish, pillow, kitchen, linen, and gem. Old English words for foods such as siese, buttere, pipor, senep, keres, and pise are borrowed from Latin words cassis, buttirum, piper, sinapi, cerasus, and pisum. Their modern English words are cheese, butter, pepper, mustard, cherry, and pea. Now let's look at the second period. The second period is the time of Celtic transmission. We can find Latin words held over from Roman occupation of Britain, which ended in 410 AD. Almost nothing remains outside few elements found in place names. Siester, Latin castra, which means walled encampment, is found in names such as Dorchester, Winchester, Manchester, Lancaster. Accordingly, Wick, in Latin vicum, which means a village, is found in Greenwich. The third period is the period of Christianizing of Britain. This goes from the 7th to the 10th centuries, when missionaries entered Britain and converted the Celtic and Anglo-Saxon population to Christianity. This resulted in the growth of the English vocabulary in many aspects. the most significant additions to vocabulary occurred in religion, philosophy, and spirituality. Here are the examples of the changes. These examples are in the modern form, since most of these words have altered only slightly since then. These words are related to religion. Here are some vocabularies from religion: abbot, alms, altar, angel, anthem, candle, collect, creed, demon, disciple, hymn, offer, organ, palm, pope, etc. From domestic life: cap, sock, silk, purple, chest, sack. From foods: lentil, pear, oyster, lobster, mussel, millet. From plants: coriander, cucumber, fennel, ginger, pine, balsam, cedar, savory, etc. Now, some vocabularies borrowed from Latin to learning are school, master, Latin, verse, paper, title, history, accent, etc. Others are such as fever, cancer, paralysis, plaster, place, sponge, elephant, scorpion, camel, tiger, giant, talent, all come from the Latin language. So, this is how Celtic, Latin, and Scandinavian languages contributed to the vocabularies in Old English.